or touching your sister-in-law, but God forbid you touch somebody under 20. And anyone mentioned getting married in the Bible was under the age of 16. Mary was anywhere from 10 to 14, while Joseph was probably in his 30s. That's the level of sick. Imagine putting Mary and Joseph as a symbol of Christmas when she was trafficked as barely a teenager. It's never acceptable for a man in his 30s to marry someone under the age of 16. No 30-year-old man should be even interested in an 18-year-old girl, let alone a 14-year-old. But we found out that in the last few months, the more religious and ultra-right conservative a man is, the more likelihood he wants to reduce the age of consent from 16 to 14. And it's the law about adultery in the Ten Commandments is never about treating people with integrity, kindness, and keeping your word. It's all about men terrified that another man will take his property. Nobody can excuse what the Bible says. It's just awful. And it's worse because there are people that will die and die on that hill because they think it's so moral, when the majority of the planet, if they were born during biblical times, half of the women on this planet would have been killed because of the adultery law. Adultery is not worth stoning someone over. It's worth divorcing over, but it is not worth killing people over. And if men are so small-minded that they have to control a woman's sexuality and hang a law of death over her, they don't love their wives. No man who loves their wife would ever accuse her in public or stone her. And churches just don't talk about it. The deplorable way the Bible talks about women and limits and erases women's rights. I mean, the only rights women had were to be protected, have clothes, food, and a place to sleep. Those were the only rights they had. They had no rights. They could not make an oath without male approval. They could not be a witness in court without male permission. They couldn't walk freely. There were places in Israel they could not go because of their gender. And if it was a certain time of the month, the women were considered filth because they couldn't go to the temple. That's biblical values for you. And anyone who loves women and respects their value would want nothing to do with organized religion. Because if you think Christianity treats people, women especially, like chewed up gum, look at what happens to women under Islam who owns their sexuality and does what they want. They do honor killings. At least the extreme people do. The problem is we justify misogynistic violence against women as morality, and it's not morality. It's ownership. And there's nothing loving in thou shalt not commit adultery, because it should not be a law. It's a private thing. And if you have to prove adultery to get a divorce, then don't get married. That's why we have no-fault divorce, to protect women against bad people, and vice versa for men. But the Republican Party that believes in morality, they want to do away with no-fault divorce, so women will be trapped in marriages where their partner is just terrible. Biblical values are cruel, murderous, and misogynistic and racist. Instead of having a law, don't touch another man's property, just have a law that says if a woman doesn't want to be married to you, let her go. Don't force the woman to marry you to begin with. And then most adultery back then probably wouldn't have happened. It still would have happened, but if you're not forced to be with somebody you don't love, you probably, I'd say 50% of adultery probably wouldn't happen if people were with someone they wanted to be with.